membership negotiations with North Macedonia and also Albania has been achieved. Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine has led to a new geopolitical reality, pushing the EU to rethink its enlargement policy and its geography. It has also reinforced the link between the neighbourhood and the enlargement policies. The EU membership applications of the three of the Eastern Partnership countries should give a new impetus to the enlargement process, including the continued accession of the Western Balkan partners. Let me finally mention that the Foreign Affairs Committee of the European Parliament has started deliberations on the future of enlargement, and draft recommendations on the new EU strategy for enlargement will be discussed right after this meeting. That's all from my side, and I would now like to give the floor to Commissioner Verheyden for his introductory remarks for, let's say, 7 minutes. Oliver, the floor is yours.
Honourable Chair, dear David, honourable members of the European Parliament, honourable members of national parliaments, and of course distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Over the last days we had important decisions taking the EU's enlargement policy back high on the agenda of the EU. Last week, the European Council endorsed the opinions of the European Commission on Ukraine, the Republic of Moldova, and Georgia's application for EU membership. All three were given the perspective to become EU member states. Ukraine and Moldova were granted candidate status on the understanding that major reform steps will be taken. Georgia will be granted candidate status once the necessary reforms are done. These are decisions that some, perhaps many, thought unlikely some months ago. But historic times bring about historic decisions. The three countries now should make full use of the opportunities created by these decisions. Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia want to join the European Union. They consider the European Union and the EU membership to be the most important and most reliable tool for security and prosperity in the long term. We have treated these applications very seriously, but not as business as usual. We worked hard and did our utmost to deliver an answer to the Council, who had asked the Commission to prepare these opinions as a matter of urgency. We prepared a rigorous and robust assessment, applying the exact same methodology that we have been using in previous cases. All three applicants were assessed on the same criteria based on their own merits. Now, with the European perspective, Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia are set on a firm and reliable track towards the EU. Let me recall that the accession process remains based on established criteria and conditions, the so-called Copenhagen criteria. These criteria, first of all, are political criteria, meaning how the country ensures democracy, the rule of law, protection of human rights and minorities. Second, the economic criteria, to assess whether there is a functioning market economy capable of resisting competitive market pressures within the EU. And third, the so-called acquis criteria, meaning the capability of applying our legislation, the EU law, as is on the ground fully. Based on these criteria, the three Commission opinions, which are now endorsed by the European leaders, identify key reform areas for Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia, where more efforts will need to be done so that they can make progress on their EU path. We will follow closely their progress and report regularly on it. The decision on the future steps on the EU path will continue to be in the hands of the EU member states, based on the progress of the respective countries following the revised methodology. In this changing geopolitical context, when we are tightening our regional partnerships and cooperation, our priority remains the Western Balkans. We are committed more than ever to bring the entire region within the European Union. It is more important now than ever to work on that, not only fast, but with full commitment and will by all the institutions. We continue our support to the Western Balkans and include them in our EU mechanisms to mitigate the current crises. We are integrating the region into our food security mechanism and including it as well as in our common gas procurement system. With our 30 billion euros economic and investment plan, we focus on strengthening the region's economy, reducing dependency on hydrocarbons for a sustainable future, building a digital economy for a cyber-secure future, and helping ensure there is a future for the youth of the region in the whole of the Western Balkans. Without proper regional cooperation, be it the Berlin process, be it the common regional market, or be it the Open Balkans initiative, the countries in the region simply cannot reap the benefits of the economic and investment plan. Anyone undermining or blocking regional cooperation based on EU rules and with EU participation undermines the economic and investment plan and the region moving forward as one. A lot of efforts have been invested in overcoming the remaining issues between Bulgaria and North Macedonia. We are nearly there. This is now the moment for all actors to take the final step. I have high hopes that the intergovernmental conferences with Albania and North Macedonia can be held within a matter of days. The countries have delivered all that has been asked. They're ready, and we should be too. We have now a solution on the table, endorsed by the Bulgarian parliament, so all obstacles are overcome. Europe must move forward. Last week, the European Council gave a positive signal regarding the possibility to give candidate status to Bosnia and Herzegovina. But this requires Bosnia and Herzegovina to deliver on a substantial set of reforms. We will assess the implementation of the 14 key priorities set out in our opinion in order to enable the European Council to revert and to decide on this matter.
Έτσι όπως είμαστε επαγγέλματα προκειμένου να υπάρξει πρόοδος. Ήρθε πλέον η στιγμή η χώρα αυτή πρέπει να ανταποκριθεί με τρόπο απτό στο πρόγραμμα μεταρρυθμίσεων για να υπάρξει πρόοδος στην πορεία της προς την Ένωση, ευθυγραμμιζόμενη προς τις προσδοκίες του λαού αυτής της χώρας. Το Κωσυφοπαίδιο περιμένει ακόμα την στιγμή που θα έρθει η απελευθέρωση του συστήματος Βίζα. Είναι ένα θέμα που μας εμποδίζει να προχωρήσουμε και να είμαστε ξεκάθαροι ότι υπάρχουν κάποιοι τομείς όπως η καταπολέμηση του οργανωμένου εγκλήματος και η καταπολέμηση του λαθρεμπορίου καθώς και διάφορα άλλα ζητήματα όπου τα κράτη-μέλη περιμένουν να δουν αυτά αποτελέσματα. Είμαστε έτοιμοι να βοηθήσουμε το Κωσυφοπαίδιο με τρόπο ανάλογο όπως το κάναμε και στην περίπτωση της Αλβανίας. Είμαστε έτοιμοι να δημιουργήσουμε ένα χάρτη πλεύσης όπου θα αντιαποκριθούμε σε όλες αυτές τις ανησυχίες.
Police forces need to get involved on the ground to help Kosovo. From our side, we are ready to give all the necessary financial, technical, and political support to this process. Regarding the Belgrade-Pristina dialogue, we need Kosovo to be giving us clear commitments and delivery. Turning to Serbia, we see that Serbia is in a very difficult situation under the current geopolitical circumstances and challenges. We need to recognize that. The issue of sanctions is only the symptom of the problem. This is why we are fully ready to support Serbia in aligning itself even further with the EU's policy on the war of Russia in Ukraine. But this should lead us to clear new commitments from Serbia as well. Needless to say, we need delivery also from Belgrade in the dialogue. Montenegro has gone through a period of democratic transition, but the country is on a good track. We expect the new government to restore the political and institutional trust, to to maintain the cross-party dialogue, and to pave the way to move forward swiftly on the key pending EU reforms. The next milestone for Montenegro is meeting the interim benchmarks for the rule of law chapters 23 and 24. Before this, no chapters will be closed. Finally, with regard to Turkey, accession negotiations for EU membership have been effectively at a standstill since 2018. The Turkish government has reaffirmed the strategical goal of EU membership on numerous occasions. However, regrettably, our concerns about the fundamentals of the accession process remain unaddressed. The Commission continues intensifying engagement with Turkey in the areas of joint interest and in line with the guidance of the European Council. To conclude, the unity the EU has shown until now has been our biggest asset. We are stronger together. The historic decisions taken last week provides a clear vision. It is now the responsibility of all of us to turn this vision into reality. There is a lot of work ahead. We are all aware of that, and we need to go together on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you for your valuable insights, and I guess this was a good kick-off for our today's discussion. Colleagues, I have received in total 36 requests to speak from national parliaments, and we need to add the requests of speakers here from the European Parliament. This is a unique opportunity to exchange the views, not only with the EU member states' parliaments, but also with colleagues from countries aspiring EU membership, both in the Western Balkans and in the Eastern neighbourhood. So in order to accommodate all the requests for the floor and to ensure an equal treatment of all colleagues, I will have to be strict with the speaking time, which is up to 1 minute and 30 seconds per speaker. And once again, I will have to be strict, and 1 minute and 30 seconds is not 2 minutes and 30 seconds, it's 1 minute and 30 seconds, and a remote meeting makes it difficult for the chair at a certain stage to simply have to turn off the microphone for the connected colleague. But don't blame the chair, I'm only executing our joint rules to make this possible. So let's try and make it work, and I once again really ask for your collegial cooperation. The first speaker is from a national parliament. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Alexander Mereshko from the Verkhovna Rada. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to be really quick. You know what's going on the ground, that Ukraine is currently outgunned and outnumbered by Russia. And the war Russia is waging against Ukraine is not only a war against Ukraine as such, it's a war against Europe. Russia is trying to punish us for wanting to become part of European family, to be free, not to be slaves of Russia, but to be part of Europe. And we deserve it because we've been waging war with Russia since 2014. And it took us 2 revolutions and 1 long war to become a member of the European Union. I believe that Ukraine is an asset. It has a huge potential for the European Union. It shouldn't be treated as a burden or as a problem. And I also believe that there should be a sort of a new deal or honest deal between Ukraine and the EU. Ukraine will be doing everything it can under very difficult circumstances of war, but everything we can to join EU. But we need help from the European Union and the countries to support us, because I believe that Ukraine deserves to become the EU member as soon as possible. I think it can happen within nearest years. And Ukraine should become an all-European project, because we're a country which will be ruined by Russia, which is in war. But Russia, we shouldn't succumb to Putin. We should do everything we can to destroy his plans and to admit EU to the European Union as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. That was more or less a bit over 1.5 minutes. That was a good beginning. I understand that Mr. Gomez Reino from the Spanish Parliament, Ms. Ariana Musilio Shoshi from the Kosovo Assembly, and Ms. Laima Andrikina from the Seimas in Lithuania are not connected. So the next on my list would then be Ms. Rosalia Ibolia Biro from the Chamber of Deputies from Romania.
Hello, everybody. I hope that you hear me.
We hear you, but we can't see you, Ms. Biro.
You can see me.
No, we can't see you.
I will try to manage it if it's possible.
Ms. Biro, try and connect again with the camera. In the meantime, I'll give the floor now to Mr. Titus Kolatsian from the Romanian Senate.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. Hello.
No.
No. Yes. Hello. Thank you so much, David. Colleagues, I hope we can hear each other and see each other. Thank you very much for this timely interparliamentary committee meeting. This is the right moment after, indeed, a historical decision taken by the European Council while granting the status of candidate for Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova. If you remember, in February, just a few days after the Russian aggression against Ukraine just started on 24th of February, we had a meeting in Paris between the chairs of the Foreign Affairs and the Defense committees of the member states, of course, with our European institutional partners. I was among those who asked at that time to grant as soon as possible this clear European perspective. Now there is a clear decision. It's the right decision. Partially, I'm slightly disappointed about the decision taken as concern Georgia. But this is it. I hope that before the end of the year, this status of candidate will be granted also to Georgia. One small friendly advice to our Georgian friends. I think they should use also the other channel, the Council of Europe and the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe monitoring, to advance in the next months with clear requirements related to their obligation upon accession to the Council of Europe. That will be extremely useful, in my opinion, also for the fulfilling the political criteria to obtain the status of candidate. My final comment, if it's possible, related to the Balkans. In Paris, under the French presidency, I also mentioned the fact that we need to advance faster also with the process related to the Balkans and Turkey. Unfortunately, somehow we are still taken prisoners by a bilateral dispute among one member state and one candidate country. Also, this has a negative impact on another candidate country, which is Albania. My only hope and political support is nevertheless to try to find a compromise solution that will allow the advancement faster with the European process also for the Balkans. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was way beyond 2 minutes, but we're still at the beginning trying to practice. Michael Gahler for the first MEP.
Yeah, thank you very much. Also, Commissioner Vahey for illustrating where we stand now. Of course, we all welcome the decision that has been taken. Now, as I understand, Rapporteur on Ukraine, my question is, of course, on this country. The assessment from the Commission that had been taken was dated for the 31st of December 21, of course, before the war started. So, fair enough, that was the point of reference. Now, when we assess how to proceed and how to advance with Ukraine, it requires now, in the light of the destruction that Russia has caused to the country and the overall situation, the assessment that you will be doing, hopefully by the end of the year. I hear noises that it might take even longer, has of course to consider the reality on the ground. So my question is, how would we, together with the Ukrainians, assess what the most urgent needs are? They may all be moving targets because we do not know how long the war will go and in which direction it will go. So which are your thoughts in this regard, how to now thoroughly assess where we stand with regard to Ukraine? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Biro. We're going to give her a second try. I'm calling Bucharest.
No, she's not connected.
So, Ms. Biro, I'm informed that you're not connected. Then I move on to the next speaker, and that would be Ms. Maka Bochurishvili from the Georgian Parliament.
Thank you. I thank the European Parliament AFET Committee for inviting us to this interparliamentary meeting today. It has been a decade that Russia's aggressive policy in our region does not let us to escape war and destruction. Georgia is the country that repeatedly experienced Russian aggression a number of times and continues to fight against occupation and its painful consequences even today. Unfortunately, after full-scale invasion of Ukraine, has the world realized the real face of Russia. We are being punished only because we dare to think about our freedom and sovereignty. On 23rd of June, the European Council made a historic decision on opening the EU membership perspective to Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. This is an important achievement for associated partners. Today, we mark 8th anniversary of signing the association agreement, and we have been always serious about implementation of this agreement, knowing that only reforms and legal approximation with the EU acquis will transform the country and make it compatible with the European Union. The progress we have made during these 8 years is tangible and undeniable. Georgia, unlike Ukraine and Moldova, is not yet a candidate country, but it is crucial that we are now part of the EU enlargement policy. We will continue the effective implementation of reforms that will advance Georgia on the path of European integration and bring us closer to our ultimate goal. It is disappointing that the European Parliament's recent assessment on Georgia was largely based on the misinterpreted facts and in some cases was utterly unfounded. We are currently living in a very complex geopolitical environment, and making such mistakes only increases the vulnerability and does not help us to directly address these threats. We expect that the European Parliament will better analyze and carefully assess the situation in Georgia, and the European Union with this further decision will help us to unite the nation around the common European goals, and this is the will of 80% of Georgia's population. Thank you.
Thank you, colleague. Next is Mr. Ioannis Bournos from the Hellenic Parliament.
Dear colleagues, I congratulate Ukraine and Moldova, and I hope Georgia will be next. We all understand that the Russian aggression on Ukraine has changed everything. Most of us seem to agree on enlargement and strategic autonomy of the EU, of the urgent need to get serious about Europe's geopolitical standing and the need to closely coordinate and upgrade our diplomatic efficacy and defensive capabilities. We have realized how much we need a Europe that is an energetic and influential force for peace and stability around its neighborhood, that is able to deter aggression in the continent and share responsibility when dealing with crises at its borders. On the other hand, our inability to unblock the candidacy path of Western Balkans, especially North Macedonia and Albania, is not just a simple failure, it undermines our unity and status. Instead of reinforcing ourselves, we leave the door open to intervention by other powers to seed division, to use one member state against another, to block the EU's common foreign policy and manipulate it to serve their interests. The enlargement and integration of the Western Balkans is a step towards peace, stability and growth, especially for the Balkan region and all current member states. So let us all rise up to the occasion and assume our responsibilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. MEP Picula is next.
Hvala predsjedniče. Poštovani parlamentarci iz cijele Europe, zemalja članica i onih koji će, vjerujem, to postati u ne tako dalekoj budućnosti. Proširenje Europske unije kao tema današnjeg susreta ponovo se vratilo u politički fokus nakon ruske agresije na Ukrajinu, nakon što je predugo bilo ostavljeno po strani. Razlozi za to su dvostrani. I zbog smanjenog apsorpcijskog kapaciteta Europske unije uzrokovana je serijom internih i eksternih kriza, ali i zbog nedostatka uvjerljivih argumenata u prilog daljnjem proširenju koje smo očekivali iz dobrog dijela zemalja u pristupnom procesu. Bez obzira na objašnjenja, mislim da zajednički možemo zaključiti kako je upravo politika proširenja jedna od najuspješnijih politika Europske unije od njenog nastanka. Jer povijest Unije je povijest širenja demokratskih vrijednosti, potvrđivanja koristi od suradnje i jačanja sigurnosti na kontinentu. A upravo ovo posljednje predstavlja trenutno najozbiljniju prijetnju. Podrška Ukrajini i Moldaviji je s pravom upućena prošlog tjedna na Vijeću, a europska perspektiva potvrđena je i Gruziji. Sada je na komisiji da politiku proširenja prilagodi novim okolnostima i novom formatu. U isto vrijeme prošlotjedni sastanak Vijeća izazvao je novi val apatije na Zapadnom Balkanu, jer osim reference o potencijalnom kandidacijskom statusu za BiH nije bilo konkretnog napretka. Konačnim otvaranjem pregovora sa Sjevernom Makedonijom i Albanijom i ukidanjem viza za građane Kosova, Europska unija može pokazati da je u kontinuitetu, a ne povremeno, dorasla novim izazovima i da može postati uvjerljivi geopolitički akter. U tom kontekstu, odlična potvrda tih ambicija bila bi, na primjer, ubrzavanje i završetak pregovora s Crnom Gorom u mandatu ove komisije i Europskog parlamenta. Hvala.
Thank you, Tonino Picula. The next two speakers from the national parliaments are Zsolt Nemet from the Hungarian National Assembly. Zsolt.
Hello, dear colleagues. Dear David, my first question is related to you. We are very glad to be at an interparliamentary committee with you again, but we feel bad that we are not able to shake your hand. We would love it, David. Do you still intend to invite us to Strasbourg or Brussels in the near foreseeable future? This is my first question. The second one is relating the enlargement and the neighborhood policy. Mr. Commissioner, enlargement and neighborhood policies have been treated separately until now. It seems now that the policies and the instruments have to be integrated also in the near foreseeable future. What do you think about this? And my third question relates to Georgia. If the Ukrainian and the Moldovan decision was a geopolitical decision, as it was said by you, Mr. Commissioner, I think it was a really important mistake or a missed opportunity that we have not treated in the same way Georgia, because Georgia was the first country who was the victim of the Russian aggression in 2008. And as Mrs. Maka Borachishvili said, it is in Georgia, it had a very, very negative reception, and understandably so. So I would like to ask you, Mr. Commissioner, that why this differentiation has taken place. Is it true that some people suggest that the geographical position of Georgia is too bad? Did it play any role in this development? And when do you plan to replace this decision with a more positive one? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zsolt, for your comment, and also as regards your question, believe me, Zsolt, I sincerely hope that for our next interparliamentary committee meeting in autumn, we will be able to finally welcome you all again in Brussels. you can imagine it's much more fun to chair a meeting in physical presence than with colleagues who are sometimes connected remotely, sometimes not. So once again, Zolt, I can't wait to see and greet you personally after the summer break at our next meeting in autumn, and I will make sure that COVID will not take place in Europe while we're having this IPC meeting. Next on my list is now, where's the list? I need it. Gary Capelli from Croatia, please.
Poštovani kolega McAllister, povjereniče Verheli, uvažene kolegice i kolege. Zahvaljujem se na organizaciji današnjeg sastanka. Prošlog tjedna su dakle Ukrajina i Moldova dobili kandidacijski status, što pozdravljamo i za što se Hrvatska u svojem djelovanju kroz institucije Europske unije kontinuirano i zalagala i znamo inzistiranje premijera Plenkovića upravo u kom smjeru išla i vlade Republike Hrvatske. Vjerujemo da će i Gruzija uskoro ostvariti isti rezultat. U ovim za Evropsku uniju uistinu izazovnim vremenima politika proširenja se svakako morala prilagoditi određenim okolnostima. Međutim, želim naglasiti koliko je važno sadržati u fokusu i zemlje takozvanog Zapadnog Balkana. Naročito u onom sigurnosnom mehanizmu kojega smo i na početku današnje konferencije i toliko o njemu i čuli. Izostanak evropske perspektive u ovim zemljama, od kojih neke imaju status kandidata već gotovo 17 godina, znači će prevladavanje nekih drugih perspektiva u ovom, dozvolite da ga tako možda i nazovem, unutarnjem dvorištu Evropske unije. Vjerujem da nam kao državama članica to nije u interesu. Stoga pozdravljam odluku Bugarskog parlamenta o ukidanju veta na otvaranje pregovora o pristupanju Sjeverne Makedonije Evropskoj uniji, te se nadam da će Sjeverna Makedonija, ali i Albanija uskoro započeti pregovore. Hvala vam lijepo.
Thank you, Mr. Capelli. And colleagues, to make things even more complicated, I've been informed that the clock taking the time of speakers is no longer functioning. So we're going to have to do this with our own stopwatch. Next is MEP David Guetta, please. Mr. Guetta?
Oui, juste un rappel à la fois aux pays membres, aux pays ayant le statut de pays candidat et aux pays aspirant à ce statut. L'Union européenne aujourd'hui ne peut plus envisager d'élargissement sans avoir procédé préalablement à une profonde réforme de ses institutions, pour ne pas dire à une réinvention de ces institutions. Aujourd'hui, l'urgence est d'ouvrir ce débat entre pays membres et pays aspirants à la candidature. Il n'est pas, malheureusement pas, à exprimer des souhaits sur une accélération du processus d'adhésion. Je vous demande pardon à tous de rappeler ces dures réalités, mais elles me semblent indispensables. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, David Guetta. Sorry. See, I was with my teenage daughters all weekend, and your nephew is even more famous than you are, at least among German teenagers. Mark de Mesmaker is the next speaker from the Belgian Senate. Excuse me. Mark.
Sorry, I was lost in translation.
Goedemiddag collega's.
Good afternoon, colleagues.
Ik zou 2 dingen willen zeggen. In de titel van deze conferentie staat in the aftermath of Russia's aggression, in de nasleep van. En het probleem is, we zijn nog niet in die nasleep. De oorlog is nog bezig.
But the problem is that we're not yet in the aftermath. The war is still ongoing and has been since 2014.
Wat de EU betreft, Poetin denkt nog altijd dat de eenheid die wij nu tonen toch niet zal duren. Dat hij het Westen zal uitputten. Wij zijn democratieën, waar altijd wel een verkiezing in het verschiet ligt. Poetin heeft geen electorale zorgen.
Putin doesn't have any electoral issues to worry about, but we do, and we need to make sure that we can sustain this in a longer term, and that's what worries me. So it's very important for our Ukrainian friends to be able to end this conflict quickly. If we can give them the opportunity to end the war quickly, we need to provide to them what they need, and also to not give conflicting signals. We are being told by some member states that we mustn't humiliate Putin. Another point is that membership of the Union goes back to the starting point of our European Union, which is the ability of all European citizens to live in free democratic states.
Ken ik het best, want daar heb ik het best opgevolgd. Kijk naar het traject dat ze in het kader van het associatieverdrag hebben afgelegd. Ondanks de oorlog, sinds 2014. Dat is indrukwekkend. Tegelijk zal het toetredingsproces natuurlijk nog zijn tijd duren, want we mogen geen compromis sluiten over de vervulling van de criteria van Kopenhagen.
This will take some time because we mustn't compromise the implementation of the Copenhagen Agreement, and so the timing and the speed of implementation is going to depend on our partners as well. We are aware of what Putin's foreign policy is, how he sees Europe, how he sees the integration of Western Balkan countries, which he will certainly try to go against. So I hope we have learned some lessons from this.
Next is Mr. Nikola Lavrinovic from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Mr. Lavrinovic is not connected. Then the next speaker is Mr. Ricardo Sousa from the Portuguese Assembly. Mr. Sousa, we were connected with you for a couple of seconds, but we couldn't see you. I'll try.
Can you hear me?
I can hear. Yes, now, go ahead.
Muito obrigado. Em razão da Federação Russa no território ucraniano colocou no centro do debate o alargamento das fronteiras da União. O Parlamento Português teve a oportunidade, dias antes do Conselho Europeu, de se pronunciar de forma esmagadora a favor da atribuição do estatuto de candidato à Ucrânia. Há uma noção de um momento verdadeiramente histórico para o futuro da União. Um momento que será definidor de uma nova ordem, baseada num compromisso político, mas também num compromisso de segurança. A defesa tornou-se uma questão primordial neste novo cenário geoestratégico, mas importa também, como sempre, continuar a defender a democracia e os direitos humanos, valores fundamentais da União Europeia. Valores que cada dos potenciais novos membros terá de demonstrar cumprir para poder vir a fazer parte da nossa família. Devemos estar na linha da frente na defesa da atribuição do estatuto de candidatos à União Europeia, sem deixar de alertar também com a necessária prudência para vermos observados os critérios de Copenhaga num processo de alargamento da União Europeia que assegura a sua continuidade, consistência e credibilidade. Devemos, entretanto e desde já, preparar-nos para prestar todo o auxílio na recuperação da Ucrânia no ambiente pacífico e contribuindo para o mais breve regresso à normalidade. É esse o desejo de Portugal e assumo de todos, para que também assim possa mais facilmente cumprir o desiderato de preencher os requisitos para poder fazer parte da nossa grande família da União Europeia.
Comply with the requirements to be part of this big European family. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Weitz from the European Parliament, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, first of all, thanks to all the colleagues to participate on this meeting today. Very important to hear your voices. On Ukraine and Moldova, we have to be aware that granting candidate status is done out of solidarity, out of support for your struggles, out of respect, how you are defending your country, your values and our values. It's not based on a merit-based process as we're having it on the Balkans, but I still stand straight to back this decision. I'm happy that we took it. When it comes to Balkans, what the effect of this decision, while not really proceeding with the Balkan area, Western Balkan area, is that we are losing even more credibility than we have lost already in the Balkans. And especially when it comes to Bosnia, well, I have understanding that we may wait until the elections to grant Bosnia candidate status, but the same arguments as for Moldova and as for Ukraine may also count for Bosnia. We're having with Republika Srpska and Mr. Dodik a leadership that is in close alliance with Mr. Lavrov and Mr. Putin, which is co-financed and financing partly its statehood or semi-statehood with Russian money, and which is clearly in contact and involved into a Russian strategy. And I do really not think that we should wait until the first bullet flies, until we take the needed decisions, to also realize that this has a geostrategical dimension as well. And it's the very same geostrategical dimension as we have with Moldova and Russia. And last but not least, a call to our very own member states. Please, to all the non-accepting and non-recognizing countries to Kosovo, please reconsider your position. We urgently need your consent also to move on with something like visa liberalization on Kosovo. We got to do our homeworks within European Union before, or let's say at the same time as we demand progress from candidate status countries.
Thank you. The next two speakers from the national parliaments, I will give the floor first to Mr. Piero Fassino from the Italian Chamber of Deputies.
Grazie Presidente. Grazie di questo incontro molto opportuno. Naturalmente noi siamo tutti felici che il Consiglio europeo abbia concesso lo status di candidato a Ucraina, Moldavia e in prospettiva la Georgia. Io voglio concentrare il mio intervento, naturalmente mi congratulo col collega Merezko e lo saluto. Voglio però concentrarmi sui Balcani, perché la questione dei Balcani sta diventando urgentissima. Sono passati 27 anni dagli accordi di Dayton, sono passati 19 anni dal Consiglio europeo di Salonicco e questo tempo è un tempo lunghissimo. Il risultato di questa lunghezza di tempo è che è cresciuta la frustrazione nelle opinioni pubbliche dei Balcani, è cresciuta l'invasività di Cina, Russia, Turchia, Emirati nei Balcani e i paesi dei Balcani che devono fare le riforme, visto che l'Unione Europea rallentava, hanno rallentato anche loro le riforme. Non abbiamo ottenuto un solo risultato positivo da aspettare 20 anni per fare entrare i Balcani nell'Unione Europea. Allora io dico che adesso è tempo di cambiare. Un ambasciatore dei paesi balcanici nei giorni scorsi mi ha detto: ma noi dobbiamo aspettare che la Russia ci invada perché l'Unione Europea finalmente ci consideri membri della famiglia. Allora io credo che queste parole devono suonare come un allarme e quindi è tempo di cambiare passo. Il Consiglio europeo ha concluso con un documento che dice accelerazione dei negoziati. Bene, questa accelerazione deve essere concreta, non può essere soltanto una dichiarazione. E per quello che riguarda il Nord Macedonia, la proposta della Presidenza francese è che si consideri l'impegno della Macedonia a modificare la Costituzione un elemento importante per aprire i negoziati, ma l'impegno, la proposta francese non prevede che fino a che non si modifica la Costituzione non si aprano i negoziati con la Macedonia. Anche su questo cerchiamo di non fare errori. Abbiamo bisogno di dare un segnale di tempestività e di effettiva volontà politica di integrazione dei Balcani. Non abbiamo più tempo.
Thank you, Mr. Fassino. Next is Pavel Fischer from the Czech Senate.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Very happy to take part in this important debate at this very moment. I will have one question to our friends from Western Balkans who are online or who are participating here today. because among the conclusions of this European Council, we read under the number 15 that in the conclusions, European Council calls for acceleration of the accession process. And my colleague from Italy spoke about already. My question mark is, how do you, in Western Balkans, imagine that this acceleration should be realized? And now my second point and final one is that I would like to react to the first introductory remarks by Oliver Farhel, the Commissioner on Neighbourhood and Enlargement, a member of the Commission which declared to be geopolitical. Commissioner, you have our full support because you, I try to quote, you said, Commission will help to align with EU policy on the war with Russia, and you spoke about Serbia. I think that the relationship of EU with Russia and China is very conflictual, and we will help Serbia to deliver also on this, but the choice is theirs. And we have to alert that buying weaponry from Russia or China might be extremely dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you, Pavel Fischer. Ms. Bonfrisco is next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Grazie, Presidente. Ben trovato al Commissario Barrei e benvenuti a tutti i colleghi dei Parlamenti nazionali riuniti qui oggi per celebrare l'unità dell'Unione Europea nelle nostre diversità. È la volontà di rimanere uniti all'Ucraina in questo processo, in questo momento drammatico di invasione da parte della Russia, e a rimanerci per tutto il tempo che sarà necessario, continuando a fornire risorse politiche, umanitarie, economiche e militari affinché la guerra finisca prima possibile. Anche il Commissario ha sottolineato come i Balcani occidentali guardino avanti, con una visione proiettata sul futuro, cercando nuovi modi di cooperare insieme, di sviluppare contatti e relazioni in una meritata prospettiva europea e atlantica. A titolo di esempio mi riferisco all'Albania, che dal 1 gennaio è componente del Consiglio di sicurezza delle Nazioni Unite e pertanto decide sulle questioni più importanti del mondo, siano esse conflitti e le loro conseguenze sulla fame, sull'energia, la minaccia nucleare, il terrorismo e così via. E allora a questo punto vengono buone, vorrei riportare qui le parole dell'ambasciatore albanese Ferry Toksa al Palazzo delle Nazioni Unite di New York sui Balcani occidentali, che lui esalta come una regione in rapido sviluppo, una regione che non dimentica la propria storia ma che non è ostaggio del suo passato. L'accelerazione deliberata dal Consiglio europeo oggi diventa per noi quindi un obbligo morale e l'Europa non può più perdere tempo. Grazie.
Thank you, dear Ms. Bonfrisco. I have good news. Apparently the clock is back. So please keep an eye on the 1.5 minute proposal. Next speaker on my list from the national parliaments is Mr. Haris Georgiadis from the House of Representatives in Cyprus.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, Ukraine's application at a time when it is waging a struggle for its freedom and independence against the brutal authoritarian regime, Putin's Russia, and the granting of a candidate status represents a triumph for European integration. And the cases of Moldova and Georgia carry an equally significant symbolism. It is such countries which demonstrate a real commitment to European liberal democracy, to European values and principles, which deserve the right to membership. And I would also like to encourage the other applicant states from the Western Balkans to maintain their commitment and effort. On the other hand, this cannot be said of countries which fail to respect international law, which violate human rights and which do not respect the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of their neighbours, of EU member states. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Tomáš Valášek from the Slovak National Council.
Many thanks, David, and I apologize for the informal get-up, but it's unbelievably hot in Slovakia. Colleagues, it isn't obviously over, the war, but it's not too early to start drawing some early lessons. I mean, to me, the most important lesson is that we gain absolutely nothing as Europeans by from denying countries that desire membership the right to apply and leaving them in a grey zone. This is not to say, obviously, that all of the countries that wish to join will also qualify in the end, but it does mean that those who wish to join, those that are in Europe and clearly live and die by our European ideals, should never be told no out of the fear of angering Russia, because that attitude gains us nothing. Vladimir Putin, I'm afraid, will do as he pleases. He is determined to restore the zone of influence that includes the former Soviet satellites, and he will try to pursue that goal, including through use of force, irrespective of what we do and say. We don't have the power to change his mind, but we do have the power to deny him success. And one of the most important ways is, of course, by binding countries and willing countries such as Ukraine close to the EU and eventually into the EU, not just the same street, but into the same house. We now have a mountain of evidence that accession works, not perfectly, but a vast majority of countries that have joined have become more prosperous, more democratic, and therefore more immune to Russian shenanigans. My last point, I listened carefully to Chancellor Scholz's warning that enlargements have increased the need for reform, and I agree, but I warn that that mustn't become an excuse for us not to advance Ukraine's and Moldova's memberships now that we have done the right thing and granted them a candidate status. The absence of reform, including in the way we make decisions, that's our problem, our challenge, not theirs. So let's get on with it. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Tomáš. Next is for the European Parliament, Kinga Gál.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy that the enlargement got a new impetus with the decision last week taken, and thanks to Commissioner Várhelyi to his clean commitment towards enlargement, what he expressed in his intervention in the beginning. I think it was a very important symbolic decision to give the candidate status to Ukraine and Moldova, and it will help the European perspective, these countries. But it is also very important to remain coherent in decision-taking and to keep our credibility. Therefore, I regret that Georgia, as well as Bosnia-Herzegovina, were not granted the same status this time. I want to underline, as it was underlined several times today, but we have to press on this, that it is more important than ever to keep our credibility and reliability towards the Western Balkans. It is in the interest of us that the security of EU and the stability of EU is linked strongly to the security and stability of the Western Balkans. And we have to encourage these countries, because what we see and feel now is a disappointment and discouragement from their side. So therefore, I underline that we have to speed up negotiations and open up new chapters with Serbia and Montenegro, and open negotiations with North Macedonia and Albania, give the candidate status to Bosnia-Herzegovina, and grant visa liberalization to Kosovo. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kinga. Next is Mr. Branimir Gvozdenovic from the Skupština in Montenegro.
Hvala, dobar dan, uvažene kolege parlamentarci, pozdrav od mene i poslanika Šaranovića. Vjerujem da invazija Rusije na Ukrajinu pokazala i uvjerila Europsku uniju koliki je značaj integracija država Zapadnog Balkana u Europsku uniju. Neophodno je pokazati stvarnu predanost europskoj perspektivi u regionu kako bi se proces integracije ubrzao. Također fokus Europske unije mora biti usmjeren ka spoljnopolitičkim ambicijama koje su do sada po našem viđenju zapostavljene zbog prioriteta unutrašnje konsolidacije. Jasna poruka zvaničnika Europske unije da zemlje Zapadnog Balkana imaju mjesto u Europskoj uniji, ali moram istaći da Crna Gora isključivo interesuje članstvo u Europskoj uniji. Nikakve alternative nama nisu prihvatljive. Odbor kojim ja predsjedavam, Odbor za europske integracije Skupštine Crne Gore će naredne nedelje organizovati posebnu sjednicu posvećenu razmatranju izvještaja Europskog parlamenta u Crnoj Gori koji usvojen prije nekoliko dana. Ovo je prava prilika da uz vaše učešće, gospodine McAllister, kao i učešće gospodina Picule i Vilčaka razgovaramo o europskoj budućnosti Crne Gore, tako da je ovo prilika da vas pozovem da se video porukom ili video komunikacijom uključite, a naše stručne službe su već preduzeli komunikaciju sa vašim saradnicima da razgovaramo, da vidimo da li imate slobodne termine. Crna Gora svoju potpunu usklađenost, kroz svoju potpunu usklađenost sa spoljnim i bezbednosnom politikom Europske unije pruža svesrdnu podršku Ukrajini i očuvanju njenog teritorijalnog integriteta i suvereniteta. Zato želim da pozdravim odluku o dodjeljivanju statusa kandidata za članstvo Europskoj uniji, Ukrajini i Moldaviji, a ujedno posebno želim da skrenem pažnju da Europska unija ne smije zaboraviti Zapadni Balkan i ne smije ga ostaviti na čekanju, uzimajući obzir prethodna iskustva ovog prostora kao i nova geopolitička i geostrateška interesovanja za ovaj prostor. Pozivam Europsku uniju da iskoristi svoju poziciju i da spriječi potencijalnu situaciju da u Europi koncentričnih krugova Zapadni Balkan kao kandidat postane u poziciji samo da arbitrira oko težišta Europske unije. Hvala vam lijepa i na vezi se.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Antonio Milošovski from the Republic of North Macedonia. He's not connected. Then I can now give the floor to Ms. Biro from Romania, who I've been informed is now connected. Ms. Biro?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I am very... I will talk without camera. Unfortunately, the connection is not very good. So congratulations for Moldova and Ukraine and the European perspective of Georgia. Romania has been and remains a consistent and active supporter of EU enlargement process. The Russian military aggression against Ukraine has once again highlighted that we need a strong EU political influence both at the level of its neighbors and on the global stage. We welcome the full alignment with the decision of the European Union in the field of the common foreign and security policy of many Western Balkan partners and reiterate our call on other partners in the region to move forward in this process. Our support is based not only on the belief that these countries belong to the greater European family, but also on the reality of the progress they have made in the reform process. Accession of the European Union is not a short-term goal, unfortunately, but the aspiring state must benefit from the optional framework for the reform process. Romania strongly supports the need for a visionary political gesture in line with the commitment of the aspirating states, and we support a clear engagement process. We need to encourage the Western Balkan states. We need a strong political will and an efficient strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Biro. Now I give the floor to Andrius Kubilius from the European Parliament.
Well, thanks a lot, Chair. Very briefly, definitely also congratulations to our friends in Ukraine and in Moldova for getting recent decisions. But also I'd like to congratulate EU decision makers that for me it looks like that EU is coming back to understand that enlargement policy really is of a huge geopolitical significance. So I would not agree with those who are saying that candidate status given to Ukraine and Moldova is just a symbolic gesture. It's some kind of humanitarian aid. That this is not based on merit-based approach, not at all. I think that the difference which we see is coming from changes inside of EU mentality and understanding. And I hope that it will mean that the previous very popular slogan that there is lack of appetite for enlargement will be changed into a new slogan, hungry for enlargement. You need to have such an ambition how to expand the area of democracy, development and prosperity on the European continent. And I would suggest really to look into possibility to create from parliamentarians, something like Alliance for Enlargement, to mobilize permanently, to mobilize political will on the EU side for enlargement policy and also for needed EU institutional reforms, and also for mobilization of political will on applicant countries to go for reforms. That's our common agenda, and we need to do, and we need to mobilize ourselves to achieve the goals.
Thank you, Andreas. The next speaker is from Serbia, Ms. Elvira Kovac. Please.
Thank you, distinguished chair. Dear colleagues, on behalf of the National Assembly of the Republic of Serbia and its Committee for European Integration, I would like really to thank you for the invitation to this meeting. The EU accession process for membership represents the strategic commitment and a major foreign policy priority for the Republic of Serbia. And therefore, the country continues to reaffirm its commitment to the process of integration into the European Union, as well as to the acceptance of European values and principles. Before acceding the EU, Serbia will continue to gradually align its foreign and security policy with the EU in order to have it fully aligned on the point of conclusion of negotiations. We regret most sincerely all the developments in Eastern Europe we are facing. We see and feel the loss of every life of every man in Ukraine as a true tragedy. Guided by the principles on which its foreign policy is based, the Republic of Serbia considers the violation of the territorial integrity of any country, including Ukraine, to be wrong. And what is most important, I would like to point out that we are following very closely internal developments in the European Union. We are concerned about the same problems that member states are facing both economically and externally. And we hope that the European Union will successfully tackle the issues it is facing, that the enlargement policy will not be brought into question. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Elvira Kovac, for your statement. Next is Mr. Adrian Bautel from Moldova.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Commissioner, distinguished parliamentarians and dear friends. First of all, thank you for the solidarity and support shown in the request of Moldova for the candidate status and European perspective. Alongside Ukraine and Georgia, in these times of war and crisis, all we want is to be part of the free world, and this candidate status is of utmost importance for us. European integration for the Republic of Moldova is the process of internal transformation and improving economy, ensuring better living conditions for the citizens of the Republic of Moldova in the first place. Already in the next weeks, the government will put together a plan on implementing Commission's recommendations and will adjust its institutional settings to improve the coordination of EU-related reforms and EU-related agenda. We look forward for a bigger or increased support from the EU and member states in accelerating implementation of the EU reforms. In the current situation, bigger support for the EU integration of Moldova means more resilience in the face of the crisis caused by Russian invasion of Ukraine. It means bigger capacity for Moldova to stay solidar with Ukraine and continue offering humanitarian support and support for the refugees that comes to the Republic of Moldova. And it means a bigger hope for the Moldovan citizens in a safer and more secure day of tomorrow. We really looking forward working even closer with all of you at the European Parliament, with the national parliaments, and of course, in these troubling times, our associated trio of Moldova, Georgia, and Ukraine should stick together, should be solidary and strong. Thank you very much.
Thank you. For the European Parliament, Nacho Sanchez Amor, please.
Gracias, David. La operación de ofrecimiento de aceptar el deseo de los países vecinos del este de incorporarse a la Unión Europea es una operación política, una operación cuyas razones geopolíticas tienen que ver con la guerra. Ninguno de los países cumplía las condiciones y si no hubiera habido una guerra no estaríamos hablando de esto. Por eso yo tampoco entiendo por qué hay que dar un tratamiento diferenciado a Georgia. Una cosa es dar una señal política y otra cosa es enviar el cuestionario, que ya es parte de un procedimiento formal. Y en ese momento, lo que eran razones geopolíticas, solo para uno de los candidatos o vecinos, Georgia, se convierte en un proceso de condicionalidad democrática. No se sabe muy bien por qué. Es obvio que no estamos muy felices con las cosas que están pasando en Georgia durante este último año, pero si está en una operación cuyo objetivo es geopolítico, lo que no podemos es dividir el trío aplicando unos criterios diferentes a unos y otros. Es más, mi preocupación es que, si como se ha dicho en los documentos de la Comisión y el Consejo, estamos muy preocupados por la polarización política del país, mi temor es que, sean cuales sean las razones nuestras para hacer un tratamiento diferente a Georgia, esas razones no van a ser las mismas que se van a utilizar en la política doméstica de Georgia, y eso va a profundizar en la polarización que estamos criticando. Por tanto, yo creo que eso hay que resolverlo cuanto antes, hay que poner a Georgia en el mismo estatus que Ucrania y Moldavia cuanto antes, y luego vendrá la negociación y tendremos ocasión de aplicar sobre Georgia nuestra crítica, la crítica que está haciendo el Parlamento en el último año. Pero dividir en este momento el trío me parece que es un grave error político con malas consecuencias para el propio país de Georgia. Gracias.
Thank you, Nacho. Next is Ms. Ventislava Lyubinova from the Bulgarian National Assembly. I've been informed that you have camera problems. If you speak without camera, it's English only and it would not be interpreted. Please.
Hello. Bulgaria has always been one of the strongest supporters of enlargement, even when the process was not so popular. For my country, enlargement is the best opportunity that together augment and consolidate the space of freedom, democracy, peace, good neighborliness and prosperity of the European continent. This cause is even more important today because of Russia's brutal aggression against Ukraine. I welcome the decision of the European Council to grant status to Ukraine and Moldova. I am sure that we will all continue to work to make this happen, for Georgia as well, which is also my personal cause. I would like to say a few words about the Western Balkans, where the geopolitical situation it is still different from our Eastern partners. I deeply believe that each country, without exception, each of the 6 countries must move more decisively towards the European Union, each with its own characteristics and achievements. Also, alignment with the common foreign and security policy is a key indicator of the level of perception and respect for European values. It is time to thank the French presidency, the Commission, and the Member States for their efforts to make the Republic of Northern Macedonia closer to the start of negotiation. I realize that this process was not easy. It's not easy at all, especially for my country. I believe that now it's the time for courage and strong political will on the part of the Northern Macedonia for bold decision. For bold decision that will pave the way our closest neighbor, to move forward to our common future within the European Union. Courage, dear friends, we will be with you all the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is for the European Parliament, Dragos Tudorache.
Thank you, David. I'll move straight to questions. Commissioner Verily, I'll read some of the conditions that both Ukraine and Moldova have to fulfill until the end of the year for the next round of assessment on the Commission side. Fight corruption, increased capacity, complete reform, de-oligarchization by eliminating excessive influence. My question is, clearly there will need to be some sort of a translation into more concrete deliverables, more tangible and measurable. So how will you work with the two countries now to translate, again, these conditions into a concrete plan, and what is the calendar for that? Second question, according to the new methodology, the member states are due to have a more increased inclusive role in the assessment. How will that happen? How will you involve the member states more in working with Ukraine and Moldova on their path that they're just starting? Thank you.
Thank you, Dragos. I am now calling the Portuguese Assembly, Mr. Jorge Seguro Sanchez.
Sr. Presidente da Comissão, Sr. Comissário, caros participantes do Parlamento Europeu e dos Parlamentos Nacionais, cumprimento especial aos nossos convidados, bem-vindos. Gostaria, em primeiro lugar, de exprimir a posição de que a União Europeia deve ter também neste tema uma posição de união clara e transparente que não acrescente nenhuma dificuldade à situação complexa e dramática na Ucrânia. A força da nossa União Europeia tem sido precisamente a sua ação concertada nesta guerra em defesa dos valores democráticos. Nesse quadro, queria congratular a Comissão pela proposta e o Conselho pela decisão recente de avançarmos de uma forma determinada na aceitação das candidaturas da Ucrânia e da Moldávia e também da Geórgia. Mas a atribuição desse estatuto é fundamental não ser feita sob qualquer reserva mental e nem de forma a gerar expectativas e frustrações. E a União Europeia tem de assumir simultaneamente que precisa de uma reflexão sobre a sua arquitetura institucional e orçamental. Ao mesmo tempo, reforçamos a necessidade de assegurarmos um compromisso muito claro de continuação do apoio financeiro e humanitário para ajudar a Ucrânia e para a sua necessária reconstrução. Finalmente, entendemos muito importante que a atual situação na Ucrânia reforce as necessidades de reflexão na União Europeia sobre outras políticas comuns, como no caso das políticas de energia e do abastecimento, reforçando neste caso as energias renováveis e as interligações energéticas. Subscrevemos a opção do consenso e defendemos uma ação urgente e refletida na adesão que queremos das pessoas nos cumprimentos das condições de adesão. Muito obrigado.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mr. Peter Ozuski from the National Council of Slovakia.
Dear Chairman, dear friends, of course, it's a pleasure that our neighbor Ukraine received a status of candidate. On the other side, the country is bleeding. And we have in European Union a rule that we can accept only a country without any border disputes. And in this case, we, in fact, if we think about it really, leave Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine in fate in hands of KGB criminal from Kremlin, because all these three countries have border disputes, and if we stick to this rule, all the invitations, all the nice gestures are less worth. By the way, I would use my time to appeal on all colleagues parliamentarians. They should press to the governments that it's nice to participate in a meeting and give invitation, but Ukraine needs weapons, weapons and weapons, because only victorious Ukraine can be member of EU, And that's why it's our duty not only to invite, but also to do the most actual and most positive thing we can do for them. By the way, we should avoid any fifth column, any agent of Putin in European Union. And it is also the case of Western Balkan. There is no interest in countries that look to Kremlin as a other choose. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker here in the European Parliament is Mr. Kyrtsos.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ, κύριε Πρόεδρε. Συμφωνώ απόλυτα με τον Επίτροπο αρμόδιο για τη διεύρυνση, ο οποίος είπε ότι οι ιστορικές στιγμές επιβάλλουν ιστορικές αποφάσεις. Θα ήθελα όμως να προσθέσω ότι οι ιστορικές αποφάσεις, δηλαδή υπέρ της διεύρυνσης προς την Ουκρανία και τη Μολδαβία και αργότερα προς τη Γεωργία, επιβάλλουν και ιστορικών διαστάσεων προσπάθειες. Και θεωρώ ότι τόσο στο στρατιωτικό επίπεδο όσο σε ό,τι αφορά την οικονομική βοήθεια δεν βοηθάμε την Ουκρανία όσο θα έπρεπε. Επίσης θέλω να ρωτήσω τον Επίτροπο πώς σκέφτεται να προσεγγίσει το ζήτημα της Ουκρανίας, γιατί η στάνταρ διαδικασία για τη διεύρυνση δεν νομίζω ότι μπορεί να εφαρμοστεί, εφόσον είναι σχετικά εύκολο να προβλέψουμε ότι τα επόμενα χρόνια η Ρωσία θα καταλαμβάνει ένα σημαντικό μέρος της Ουκρανίας και θα υπάρχει ένα είδος εμπόλεμης κατάστασης. Συμφωνώ απόλυτα με τον συνάδελφο από την Ουκρανία ότι το ζήτημα δεν είναι μόνο επίθεση κατά της Ρωσίας κατά της Ουκρανίας, αλλά και κατά της Ευρώπης, κατά του Ευρωπαϊκού Συστήματος Ασφαλείας, και γι' αυτό θεωρώ ότι Σερβία και Τουρκία πρέπει να κρατήσουν μεγαλύτερες αποστάσεις από τον Πούτιν και την πολιτική του. Τώρα είναι η ώρα να μας αποδείξουν ότι είναι υπέρ της ευρωπαϊκής προοπτικής. Ευχαριστώ.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Alessandro Gigliovigna.
Buongiorno colleghi. Allora, prima di tutto solidarietà al popolo di Ucraina.
First of all, I would like to express my
L'Ucraina nell'Unione Europea, il
Ukrainian
processo di
people.
adesione è un atto politico importante. Prendiamo atto che i tempi saranno lunghissimi e sottolineiamo che al momento si tratta di un atto politico, per quanto, come dicevo, importantissimo. Sui Balcani è necessario accelerare. Molto brevemente bisogna evitare che quei paesi inizino a guardare ad est per le titubanze dell'Unione Europea, e lo sappiamo che guardare ad est vuol dire guardare economicamente ma anche politicamente alla Russia e alla Cina. L'Unione Europea deve porsi come elemento di dialogo in questa fase difficilissima. A me fa male pensare che l'Unione Europea si è fatta superare come elemento di dialogo, come istituzione che fa sedere le parti intorno a un tavolo, si è fatta superare addirittura dalla Turchia di Erdogan. Io penso che spetta a noi, io penso che spetta all'Unione Europea porsi al centro della storia per ritrovare il suo ruolo di elemento di dialogo e elemento di propensione verso la pace, e questa è una via per far ritrovare all'Unione Europea il ruolo che gli spetta nel mondo. Grazie Presidente.
And therefore make it possible for Europe to take on its role in the world.
Thank you, Mr. Giglio. Next is Ms. Doina German from the Republic of Moldova.
Hello, do you hear me?
Ms. German, we can hear you, but it would be even nicer if we could see you. Would you like to turn your camera on?
Yeah, sure. 1 second.
Yes. Excellent. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair McAllister. Dear colleagues, dear friends, Moldova is a small country that just became a few days ago a country with great hope and reach of a European future. And this historic decision to grant Moldova and Ukraine the EU candidate status is a crucial turn for our people that for sure will bring more democracy, stability, security and peace for us, but for the whole European community as well. The European Parliament demonstrated that it has a strong voice and political will, advocating for Moldova as a country that can bring value to the enlargement process. And I believe that we can grow into a resilient, democratic and prosperous country. We will definitely remain a responsible and committed partner and work with even more dedication to pursue this European country project, the project that should and will join the efforts of our entire society, I mean the authorities, the civil society, business community, and of course our huge and great Moldovan diaspora. We will complete the essential steps of our justice reform, fight against corruption, the protection of human rights, the equality and safety of all our citizens. And I strongly believe that our future, the future of the Republic of Moldova, is in the European Union. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Ms. German. Next is Mr. Koloman Brenner from Hungary.
Herzlichen Dank für das Wort, Herr Präsident McAllister. Wie meine Kollegen mir sagen, kann man mein Bild nicht sehen.
Herr Kollege, man kann in der Tat Ihr Bild nicht sehen. Sie können gerne sprechen, es wird aber nicht übersetzt. So sehr ich mich freuen würde, wenn Sie jetzt Deutsch sprechen. Das Problem ist, dass die allerwenigsten Kollegen wahrscheinlich Deutsch verstehen. Deshalb entweder Kamera an oder ich würde Ihnen empfehlen, Englisch zu sprechen. Oder Sie versuchen es auf Deutsch, aber dann werden es die meisten nicht verstehen. Jetzt ist die Kamera an.
Jetzt ist das Bild da, wenn ich das richtig sehe, oder?
Richtig, jetzt geht's los.
Okay, herzlichen Dank noch einmal, Herr Vorsitzender. Ich würde es gerne fortsetzen in meiner deutschen Muttersprache. Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, in dieser neuen historischen Epoche nach dem Angriffskrieg von Putin Russland gegen die Ukraine ist es sehr wichtig, dass die Europäische Union eindeutige Signale sendet. Deswegen begrüße ich auch natürlich sehr die Entscheidungen der Europäischen Union bezüglich der Ukraine und der Moldau. Allerdings möchte ich dasselbe Signal sehen, sowohl im Falle Bosnien-Herzegowina als auch von Georgien. In vielen Sonntagsreden haben wir geschworen, dass die Europäische Union auch eine Wertegemeinschaft ist. Und eben deswegen wäre es wichtig, im Westbalkan auch eindeutige Signale zu senden und den Einfluss von Russland oder auch China, also von autoritären Staaten, entgegenzuwirken und sie zu überzeugen, dass auf dem europäischen Kontinent eben es sehr wichtig ist, Wohlstand und Freiheit zu sichern, und dazu gehören die europäischen Grundrechte. Und als letzten Gedanken noch als Angehöriger der deutschen Minderheit in Ungarn und vormaliger Vorsitzender von deutschen Minderheiten in Europa möchte ich ganz besonders von den Kopenhagener Kriterien die Minderheitenrechte betonen, und unsere sprachliche und kulturelle Vielfalt sollte auch in den neuen Mitgliedstaaten dann bewahrt werden. Herzlichen Dank für die Aufmerksamkeit.
Vielen Dank, Herr Kollege Brenner, für Ihren Beitrag. Next speaker is Konstantinos Dioulekas from the Hellenic Parliament.
Καλησπέρα από την Αθήνα. Να χαιρετήσω τον φίλο πρόεδρο Μακάλιστερ, τον φίλο πρόεδρο Φασίνο και τους συναδέλφους. Συνεδριάζουμε με ένα πόλεμο να μένετε μέσα στην Ευρώπη και αυτό κάνει πολύ πιο επίκαιρο και το μήνυμα των οραματιστών και των ιδρυτών της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης για μια πολιτική ενοποίηση της Ευρώπης, αλλά επίσης κάνει και πολύ επιτακτική την ανάγκη να μην επιτρέψουμε σε καμία αναθεωρητική δύναμη να αμφισβητεί τις συνθήκες και τα σύνορα, προκαλώντας διάφορα προβλήματα σε άλλες περιοχές και προκαλώντας αναταραχή. Σε ό,τι αφορά στην διεύρυνση στις τρεις αυτές χώρες, η Ελλάδα ασφαλώς και υποστηρίζει μια στενή εταιρική σχέση σύμφωνα και με τις συμφωνίες σύνδεξης των τριών αυτών χωρών που υπεγράφησαν επί ελληνικής προεδρίας το 2014. Πρέπει όμως να σημειώσουμε δύο πράγματα. Ότι η διεύρυνση αυτή εξαρτάται και από τις προσπάθειες που καταβάλει κάθε χώρα και επίσης πρέπει να σημειώσουμε ότι παράλληλα με αυτή τη διεύρυνση θα πρέπει να προσέξουμε και τις υπόλοιπες χώρες οι οποίες εδώ και αρκετό διάστημα διεξάγουν συνομιλίες, ενταξιακές διαπραγματεύσεις με την Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση και αναφέρομαι ιδιαίτερα στα Δυτικά Βαλκάνια, όπου εκεί θα πρέπει να στρέψουμε επίσης την προσοχή μας για να μπορέσουμε να βοηθήσουμε να πάμε πολύ πιο γρήγορα στην ολοκλήρωση αυτό που είπα στην αρχή, ενός οράματος για μια μεγάλη ενωμένη πολιτική ευρωπαϊκή οικογένεια. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ. Καλησπέρα από την Αθήνα.
Thank you, Efyaristo. Mr. Haki Abazi from the Kosovo Assembly is next. Mr. Abazi is not connected. Then I give the floor to Mr. Nikolos Zamcharadze from Georgia.
Hello. It is with mixed feelings that I'm addressing you today. On the one hand, we are very happy that the European Council took a decision on giving membership perspective to Georgia, Ukraine and Moldova that we could not even have dreamt of 6 months ago. On the other hand, we are disappointed by differentiating between the associated trio, and it is especially disappointing that the conditions that are set for the three countries are mostly the same conditions at almost 90%. And this is even more lacks logical explanation why Georgia has to implement the conditions first and then get status, whereas Ukraine and Moldova got the status with the conditions. We hope that the explanation given by President Macron that it's all about geostrategic location will not hold true, because otherwise then it means that the doors for Georgia are shut. On the other hand, I would like to also stress that the conditions that we need to implement, some of them are very concrete and we welcome that and we will of course implement them, but some of them are vague and cannot be really measured, so we would like to have more clarity on those conditions that might be read differently, and this is something that we need to work together with you in order to advance Georgia's membership path and in 6 months to reconsider this decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you, colleague. If I'm informed correctly, we are facing the last 4 speakers, all from the national parliaments. I now would like to give the floor to Mr. Marios Matijožaitis from Lithuania. So he's not connected. Then I'm calling Mr. Anastasios Chatzivasiliou from the Greek Parliament. Is our Greek friend connected? If that is not the case, I am calling Ms. Stefania Craxi from the Italian Parliament. Well, that was an empty room.
Quindi, sala vuota.
Our colleague from Kosovo, I am informed, is now connected. Mr. Haki Abazi, we'll give it a second try. Mr. Abazi, we hear you, and now we would like to... No, we see you, and now we would like to hear you. No, we can't hear you. Microphone, unmute, mute. I'm sorry, we can't hear you, but we can see you. Now, whatever you did, that was good. Please, go ahead. Please. No. Say something. Go ahead, Kosovo.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair, and I'm sorry about that. Just to reiterate some of the speakers, we're very happy about Ukraine and Moldova. There is no more critical historical time to move swiftly with great leadership from the EU. We want the same for Georgia, obviously coming from Western Balkans. That needs to be moving ahead. So I fully agree with Chair Fassino and MP Waits, and to the answer to the question of Mr. Powell Fisher, yes, we need to be bold and call for alignment of the foreign policies and defense and security policies for all the members and aspiring members. Kosovo is ready, has put the sanction, has passed the resolution in support of Ukraine, is ready to move forward, and we fully believe not only on the right of the visa liberalization, but also on the membership of the Council of Europe as well. So my question, a critical question, is to Mr. Varhelyi. What kind of roadmap we're talking when European Commission in 2018 has confirmed that Kosovo has fulfilled all the criteria, double of other countries who have entered the visa liberalization process. So please, let's review fundamentally the position of the leadership and move in a bold ways in order to close all the gaps for third actors in the European continent. And Kosovo government and Kosovo institutions are absolutely ready to meet and work pragmatically, as in the case of the energy agreement with Serbia, but also on other aspects in order to close any type of vulnerability for the European continent that is coming as a threat of the third actors, and especially from Russia and its proxies in the continent.
Thank you. I'm asking the Secretariat, is anybody else from the national parliaments connected?
Within 3 minutes.
No. Look, we're at the end of our speaking list and we can't wait for further colleagues to go back. I would now conclude today's speakers list and would like to call DG NIA. Commissioner Vahey and later on Maciej Popowski have been listening carefully to all the comments made by our colleagues from the National Parliament and the European Parliament. And Maciej Popowski, it's up to you now to try and answer as many questions as possible and also on the many comments you've heard. So I'll give the floor to you. We are quite good in time. If you can try and sum it up in 15 minutes, that would be very helpful. Maciej. Maciej, we can see you, but we can't hear you.
Once again, can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can. Thanks.
I'm sorry. Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, dear David. It's quite a task to react to all the points raised, but I'll do my best. Indeed, just to recall the initial comment of Commissioner Varhelyi, the decisions taken first by the Commission and then by the European Council are truly historic. There is absolutely no exaggeration in that. And if we look in hindsight how far we have come, it's actually quite amazing. Of course, the focus is rightly on the candidate status granted to Ukraine and Moldova, and one that is possible for Georgia. But in fact, all the three countries have the European perspective confirmed for the first time ever, something which was quite difficult to imagine a few months ago. We all remember that the countries in the Western Balkans were granted the European perspective at the Thessaloniki summit in June 2003, so it's quite a while ago, and now it happened with regard to the three applicants from the East. We have done everything by the book. I just want to reassure all participants. So we applied the enlargement methodology as revised in 2020 to the three applicant countries without any shortcuts. We did things very quickly, and so did they. They replied to the membership questionnaires in record time, giving us a wealth of information of very high quality, which enabled us to process the membership applications and be ready in time. The analysis is rock solid, and I have to say that it was quite rewarding, certainly for President von der Leyen, who was in the room, to listen to the heads of state and government praising the Commission for the quality of our assessment that was very well balanced and enable the Council to take the decision that it took. And this will continue. So the Copenhagen criteria are exactly as they were formulated in 1993. And the European Council confirmed it, also putting emphasis on the EU's own absorption capacity. Of course, we will have to assess the fulfillment of the steps identified by the Commission in our opinions, as we were asked by the European Council. We will do it as part of our regular enlargement report. So we are going to work on one for this year, but this year will cover the Balkans, Western Balkan countries, and Turkey. And then we'll start on the next edition. I mean, it's an annual exercise. We draw on the usual sources of information, including member states' views. I'm jumping ahead to answer one of the questions raised. Of course, we do cooperate with member states, and in the end, they have the final say in the assessment of the fulfillment of any criteria that are necessary to be fulfilled by candidates or potential candidates. Many of you have spoken about Georgia, and indeed our assessment showed that Georgia was not there yet because of a number of reasons, one of them being the political polarization in the country. But I think that the conditions identified are reachable, and if there is enough political will, Georgia can certainly catch up. And this principle of catching up and a common level playing field has applied to the countries in the Western Balkans so far, and we will do the same with the three applicants from the East. Our commitment to the Western Balkans and the enlargement to the Western Balkans is rock solid. There's no changes, and Commissioner Varhelyi was very clear on what we would like to achieve We are still hoping that we'll be able to reach a decision on opening accession negotiations with North Macedonia and Albania in the coming days, really. And this has been long overdue, and I think we are pretty close. And we will continue working on Serbia's alignment with the common foreign and security policy. We have been given a specific task on Bosnia. Many of you have raised the issue of Bosnia and Herzegovina. There was quite some discussion at the European Council, I have to admit. And the Council conclusions are clear. So we are going to report on the implementation of the 14 key priorities identified in 2019, set out in the Commission's opinion, trying to assess whether a substantial set of reforms have been implemented in order for the European Council to be able to take a decision on the candidate status for Bosnia. And on Kosovo and the visa liberalization, here our position has not changed. Indeed, we concluded the assessment. We think that the decision on introducing the visa liberalization can be taken now, and we have to revert to the issue as a matter of priority, because this decision has been long overdue. Coming to some of the specific points raised by members of the European Parliament and national parliaments, Ukraine needs assessment. Indeed, we applied a cut-off date in our work on the opinion of last December, and now we are moving on with our reconstruction plan for Ukraine, and we already started working with the World Bank on the needs assessment. Of course, it cannot be final as long as the war is ongoing, unfortunately, because destruction is still happening every day. But we will do as much as we can, and then set up, as announced in the communication by the European Commission at the end of May, Ukraine reconstruction platform that we would co-lead and co-manage, the European Commission, with the Ukrainian government, ensuring full ownership and a close link between reconstruction and the reform process on Ukraine's European path. On the question of the impact of the enlargement, or the extension of enlargement policies to the three countries on the policy instruments that we manage in the Commission, it's not automatic. Both regulations concerning the EPA instrument for the accession countries and NDICI are legal texts, so they would require certain amendments. But for the time being, we can continue working with Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia using the NDICI instrument as it is. And in the communication that I mentioned before, the Commission announced our intention to set up a specific Ukraine reconstruction facility for the future that would be the main tool to work on both reconstruction and the necessary reforms. In conclusion, I see clearly that enlargement, that there is a certain revival of enlargement policy, and it will remain on the agenda of EU leaders for quite some time. And of course, the Commission will continue playing its institutional role as a driver of the enlargement policy. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Maciej Popowski. If there are no further requests to take the floor, then this concludes today's interparliamentary meeting. I would like to thank all colleagues, those connected remotely from the national parliaments, for their participation and insightful contributions on the future direction of enlargement policy, and also to our colleagues here in the European Parliament in Brussels. I guess we agree, and this is how I would sum up today's debate, that the European Union and our 27 member states must continue showing solidarity and also a strategic vision in the context of the brutal aggression against Ukraine. This is a war against the very principles and values on which the EU is based, and therefore I call on the decision makers across Europe to strengthen a joint commitment to a merit-based enlargement process responding to the legitimate aspirations of the people to live in a free, democratic and prosperous European family. And to Zsolt Nemeth and all other national colleagues, let me once again underline what I mentioned. I sincerely hope that this was our last meeting in an online format, and that for the next meeting I will be able to welcome you all here in Brussels for an interparliamentary committee meeting. So once again, thank you for your participation, dear colleagues, and I can now close this point on our agenda, and I would like to inform the AFET colleagues that I would really like to now start with the next item on our agenda, but for that our rapporteur, Mr. Pizzula, would have to be present. Has Mr. Pizzula already been informed by the Secretariat?
He's in the middle of an interview right now.
Pardon?
He's in the middle of an interview right now, we're told.
Okay, then I would suggest that we wait until Mr. Pizzula has arrived here in the meeting room, so we'll have a break for a couple of minutes.